Around 500 BC, two city-states dominated the Greek world. One was built entirely around control and obedience. The other was built around competition, glory, and the relentless drive to be the best. They hated each other, and their conflict would define what it means to build a civilization. But here is what makes their story more than just ancient history. Every society since has been some version of one or the other, and neither one ended well. The key to understanding ancient Greece is geography. Where you live determined everything about how your society worked. Sparta sat on flat, fertile plains in the interior of the Greek peninsula. That land was ideal for farming, and because farming requires workers, Sparta conquered and enslaved the people around them. These slaves, called helots, outnumbered Spartan citizens by about 10 to 1. That ratio defined everything. To keep 10 people down for every one of yours, you have to become something terrifying. Sparta built itself into the most disciplined military society in history. Boys were taken from their families at age 7 and placed in a brutal boarding school system where older students regularly beat the younger ones, not as punishment, but as training. As teenagers, they were paired with adult mentors who became both teachers and companions, building the emotional bonds the Spartans believed made soldiers fight harder for each other. By adulthood, they were soldiers, full stop. Sparta had no real money system, no private property, no interest in the world beyond their borders. Their entire culture was built around one question: how do we keep the slaves from rebelling? The answer made them conservative, isolationist, and deeply conformist. Change was dangerous. New ideas were dangerous. Anyone who rocked the boat got removed. Athens was the opposite, and again the reason was geography. Athens sat on rocky, hilly terrain near the coast, terrible for farming. The hills were good for olive trees, and the harbor was excellent. But the real engine of Athens was trade. There were merchants, sailors, and colonizers constantly seeking new markets across the Mediterranean. A trading culture produces a very different society. You have to be open to new people, new ideas, new arrangements. You have to be able to negotiate, persuade, and adapt. Athenians developed a concept they called eudaimonia, which roughly means human flourishing, the idea that the point of life was to become the best possible version of yourself. Not to fit in, not to obey, to excel. Their most famous literary hero, Achilles in Homer's Iliad, was given a choice: live a long, quiet, forgotten life, or go to war, die young, and be remembered forever. For Athens, that was not even a real choice. The problem with a culture organized around individual excellence is that everyone is competing, everyone is trying to be the hero, and there is only room for one hero at the top. Athens became intensely competitive, even vicious. Political figures routinely undercut each other. The democracy was real but fractious, a constant battle between upper nobility and lower nobility, each faction using the people as leverage. Athens even invented ostracism, a formal process where citizens could vote to banish someone from the city for 10 years simply for becoming too powerful or too dangerous to the balance. In a culture where being exiled is considered worse than death, you understand how seriously they took status. These two cities were inevitable enemies: conservative versus progressive, isolation versus expansion, obedience versus competition. They tolerated each other as long as they needed each other, most notably when Persia, the superpower of the age, threatened to swallow Greece entirely. Athens and Sparta fought side by side against the Persians and won. But after that victory, Athens grew wealthy, their trade networks expanded, their navy became the most powerful in the Mediterranean, and Sparta grew afraid. The conflict, the Peloponnesian War, lasted nearly 30 years and destroyed both of them. Here is what the story of Athens and Sparta really teaches. A researcher named Peter Turchin spent years studying why civilizations collapse. His answer was not barbarian invasion, not natural disaster, not bad luck. His answer was elite overproduction. As any society becomes successful, more and more people are raised to expect power and status. The elite grows, but the number of positions at the top does not grow at the same rate. So you end up with too many ambitious people fighting over too few opportunities. When that happens, factions of the elite start recruiting the poor and the desperate as allies, promising them debt relief, land, freedom. Every major revolution in history follows this blueprint. The conflict is never really between the rich and the poor. It is between the group that has everything and the group that has almost everything but wants more. Athens did not fall because of Sparta. Sparta did not fall because of Athens. Both societies were already unstable long before they went to war. Their wealth had created elite overproduction. Their social contracts were cracking. The war just accelerated what was already coming. And this is not a unique story. The Mayan civilization followed the exact same arc, rose fast, peaked, then collapsed within a generation, not because of one catastrophe, but because the internal pressures had been building for decades. What is the solution? Can a society avoid this? Probably not forever. Every system that concentrates power eventually produces too many people fighting for that power, and the system breaks. But here is the interesting part. The Bronze Age collapse, which destroyed the civilization that came before Greece, is what made Greek civilization possible. The collapse of the Mycenaean world cleared the ground for Athens, for Sparta, for Homer, for democracy, for philosophy. Collapse is also creation. The question is not how to build a society that never falls. That might not be possible. The question is what gets built in the space where the old world used to be. Sometimes the answer is extraordinary.